What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So my first reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the display. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 390, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So overall, in pretty much every way, the display we're getting here is great. At 6.6 inches, we definitely are getting a pretty large display here. So if you're going to be on your phone a lot doing stuff like reading, browsing the web, using social media, watching videos, pretty much anything you can think of, you will get a good experience. Things are going to be larger and easier to see. So definitely great there. With a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, it's a little bit shorter and wider than your typical 20:9 aspect ratio, but honestly, I feel like it's not really that much of a difference, and it kind of makes the screen feel bigger in general. And I mean, when you're in landscape mode doing stuff like looking at photos, watching videos, that kind of thing, you still are going to get a pretty nice immersive experience. So overall, for the size and dimensions, I really have no complaints here. And of course, with a 1080p resolution, we are getting a nice, sharp, crisp image, which is definitely going to help if you're doing stuff like watching videos, where the image quality is a bit more important. And on top of this, with a Super AMOLED display, compared to something like an IPS LCD, for example, the colors are going to look a bit nicer, the display in general is brighter, and the viewing angles are quite a bit better. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, this phone is still going to be really easy to see. And with the 120Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel a bit more premium. So overall, if you are looking for a phone that has a really nice display, if you're going to be on your phone a lot consuming content and stuff like that, for that kind of use, the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G will be a great choice. My second reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the processor. Now with this phone, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor. And overall, for what it is, the performance we're getting with this phone is definitely impressive. Now, compared to something like a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or a Google Pixel 6a, it's not going to be quite that fast, but compared to the average mid-range phone, like for example this phone's predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, the A34 5G is quite a bit faster. So if you are looking for something that has a little extra power, but you still don't really need an actual flagship phone, this phone will be a pretty good compromise. It's especially good if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, doing still more basic things like web browsing and social media, but you're still really just going to be doing that kind of stuff all the time. For that kind of activity, this phone will be a great choice, and even for stuff like mobile gaming that takes a little bit more processing power, like maybe you're playing Call of Duty a lot or something like that, well, there are still phones out there that are going to be quite a bit faster. For that sort of activity, the A34 5G will still get the job done. Now, I did run a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of where this phone stands performance wise compared to your current device, because depending on what you have, this phone may or may not actually be a performance upgrade. If you're coming from a typical mid-range phone, for example, or maybe even a more entry-level device, then yeah, I definitely do think the A34 5G will be a pretty solid upgrade. But if you're coming from an older flagship phone, then chances are it may be closer to even, or depending on what you have, even a bit of a downgrade. But in general, for the average user, I do think this phone will feel pretty fast, and for most activities, you are going to get a pretty good experience. My third reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the camera. Now, taking a look at the camera setup here, up front, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. And keep in mind for video, this phone does have a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely great there too. Overall, when it comes to features, as you can see, this phone has pretty much everything, including an ultra wide camera and a macro camera. And to make it even better, most phones in this general price range typically have a depth sensing camera, but with the A34 5G, the sensor is actually so good it doesn't need one, and that really goes to show Samsung gave this phone some real good hardware. So if you're looking for a more affordable phone that still takes really nice photos, you're definitely not going to go wrong with this phone. To give you an idea of what it can do, here are some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. And again, definitely great quality here. Sure, it's not going to be quite as good as something like an S21 FE, for example, but for more of a mid-range phone, it definitely does get the job done. And for most people, for the majority of things you're typically going to be using your camera for, whether it's something like Instagram, Snapchat, or just sending photos to friends and family or something like that, regardless, the A34 5G will be good enough to get the job done. And again, this phone can record 4K videos too. And keep in mind, this phone is going for around $327 factory unlocked. And in this price range, at least when it comes to newer phones, when it comes to recording 4K videos, you're not really going to have a ton of options. So if you are recording a lot of videos, this is definitely a nice feature to have. My fourth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the battery. Now with this phone, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 25 watt fast charging, so in every way, this is a really good battery. With the 5000 mAh battery, of course, you can expect to get some real good battery life and longevity. At least in the US, this is pretty much the largest battery you're gonna find in a phone. I have seen literally one other phone that has a larger battery than this, but it's definitely not common. So in general, if you are looking for a phone that has really good battery life, maybe you're not always around a charger, so you want something that's gonna last all day, a phone like this that has a 5000 mAh battery is gonna be a good bet. And in addition to the battery size, with 25 watt fast charging, sure, this isn't really amazing. There are phones like OnePlus phones, for example, that have 33 watt fast charging, but for the majority of phones in this price range, you're not really going to do a whole lot better than 25. And in my experience, provided you actually have a 25 watt fast charger, which keep in mind, this phone does not come with, the charging speed is actually really good. And just so you know, keep in mind, not only does this phone not have a fast charger, but it doesn't come with any kind of wall adapter, so you are going to need one yourself. But in general, if you're looking for a phone that not only has really good battery life, but also great charging speeds too, the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G will be a great choice. And finally, my fifth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the software. Now this phone does come with Android 13, which is honestly not surprising considering this is 2023 and this phone really only came out a couple months ago. But all the same, not only are we getting Android 13 here, but Samsung is known for having really good software support. So with this phone, you can expect to get several other major updates in the future. Now I believe it's going to get Android 14, 15, 16, and 17. And while for a lot of people this might not matter a whole lot, because of course if you're getting a new phone every other year for example, you're only really going to need 1 or 2 major updates. But if you are someone who likes to keep the same phone for a longer amount of time without having to replace it, getting 4 years of software support is definitely a nice thing. But those were my 5 reasons why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Again, if you do want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.